On June 6, 1944, explosions tore through the fields of Normandy, shaking the earth beneath soldiers' boots. Amid the chaos, American squads advanced with a precision that startled observers. Every unit equipped with a small, portable radio. Orders flowed instantly. Adjustments were made in real time, and movements that once required painstaking coordination now unfolded seamlessly. German engineers watched from their observation posts, stunned. They had prepared for fierce resistance, calculated every possible American maneuver, but never anticipated this level of communication at the squad level. Signals that would have taken minutes to relay across the battlefield were now instantaneous, giving the Americans an edge no one had predicted. Machine guns, artillery, and mortars all fired with deadly accuracy, guided by commands flowing through these compact radios. Infantry moved confidently, leaders adjusted tactics on the spot, and reinforcements arrived exactly where needed. The battlefield was alive, synchronized in a way that seemed impossible. Every exchange of information, every coordinated push forward challenged assumptions that German engineers had held for years. In that moment, the invisible power of portable radios became undeniable. What had once been a slow, fragmented fight was now a new kind of warfare, fast, precise, and devastatingly effective. By mid-1944, the Allied invasion of Western Europe was underway, and the stakes had never been higher. German forces held extensive defensive positions across Normandy, fortified with bunkers, machine gun nests, minefields, and artillery. Commanders relied on rigid hierarchies and pre-planned orders, but battlefield conditions often broke these systems. Communication was slow and unreliable. Runners could be killed or delayed. Field telephones required wires that were easily cut, and visual signals were limited by terrain and smoke. The chaos of combat frequently left units isolated, unaware of orders or reinforcements, struggling to adapt in real time. The American military had recognized these vulnerabilities early. In the Pacific Theater and North Africa, they had experimented with radios at the company and battalion levels, but portable devices small enough for individual squads were a radical step forward. The innovation was not simply technological, it was organizational. Every infantry squad could now act as a cohesive unit, receiving immediate updates from higher command, relaying intelligence from the front, and coordinating attacks with neighboring units. The speed and precision of these communications transformed the dynamics of engagement. Development of portable radios involved both engineering ingenuity and tactical foresight. The SCR-300, known as the walkie-talkie, provided squads with a wireless lifeline across hundreds of meters, capable of transmitting commands under fire. Engineers had to solve problems of weight, battery life, and durability. Radios needed to survive mud, rain, and the constant shocks of combat. Training programs ensured soldiers could operate them efficiently under stress, integrating communication into their movement and strategy rather than treating it as a secondary function. German engineers and officers had long assumed that small unit communication would remain limited. Their defensive designs relied on the delays and confusion inherent in conventional methods. Orders were transmitted from command posts to company leaders, who then relayed them to squads, a process vulnerable to disruption. The Americans' squad-level radios shattered this model. Suddenly, units could report positions, request fire support, and respond to threats almost instantaneously. German planners struggled to reconcile this reality with their expectations. The psychological effect on both sides was profound. American soldiers felt empowered, coordinated, and capable of improvisation while remaining linked to command. Leaders could issue tactical adjustments with confidence, knowing that orders would reach their intended recipients. On the German side, disbelief and frustration mounted. Observers noted the uncanny synchronization of American movements, the sudden appearance of reinforcements, and the rapid adaptation to unexpected obstacles. Every engagement that involved squad-level radios highlighted the gap between traditional doctrine and the new American approach. In training and preliminary skirmishes leading up to the Normandy landings, these radios were tested under realistic conditions. Squads practiced coordinating attacks, calling for artillery support, and adjusting plans dynamically. Successes in these exercises demonstrated that portable radios could maintain their effectiveness even under the extreme pressures of actual combat. Commanders recognized that the combination of technology, discipline, and human adaptability could create advantages far beyond mere firepower. The stage was set for the Americans to introduce squad-level radios in full-scale operations as units stormed beaches, moved through hedgerows, and engaged entrenched defenders. These devices became the arteries of command and control. They allowed small units to fight as integrated elements of a larger whole, overcoming the fragmentation that had previously plagued infantry operations. German engineers, witnessing this innovation in action, were forced to reconsider assumptions that had guided defensive design for years. And with these foundations established, technological innovation, rigorous training, and the shortcomings of conventional communication, the story moves to the next phase: the full deployment of squad-level radios and the transformative impact they had on the battlefield. The deployment of portable radios to every American squad represented a profound shift in battlefield dynamics. Unlike previous systems, which relied on slow, vulnerable channels of communication, these devices enabled instantaneous coordination across hundreds of meters. Units that had once struggled to relay orders or report enemy movements could now act with cohesion, adapting to threats and opportunities as they arose. For the Germans, this development was unsettling. Engineers who had designed fortifications to exploit communication delays were confronted with a force capable of synchronizing attacks with precision they had never anticipated. Each radio was compact yet durable, designed to withstand mud, rain, and the shocks of combat. Battery packs allowed for several hours of continuous operation, and clear transmission ensured that commands were received accurately even amidst the din of battle. Soldiers were trained to use the radios not as optional tools, but as essential components of their combat method. They could request artillery strikes, coordinate flanking maneuvers, report enemy concentrations, and alert reinforcements, all in real time. This level of integration gave American squads a flexibility previously reserved for higher command levels. German observations highlighted the revolutionary impact. Engineers reported astonishment at the speed and reliability of American communication. They noted that small units could execute complex maneuvers with minimal delay, and that artillery fire could be adjusted on the fly to support infantry advancing through hedgerows or urban rubble. Commanders realized that entrenched positions, which had been effective against slower, fragmented assaults, were now vulnerable to rapid, coordinated attacks. Traditional defensive doctrine, which had long relied on the natural lag in communication, was rendered obsolete. Training exercises prior to D-Day underscored the advantage. Squads practiced advancing while maintaining continuous contact, using radios to coordinate multiple elements simultaneously. The integration of flamethrower teams, demolitions, and artillery support became seamless, with every unit aware of the other's positions and intentions. These practices demonstrated that the radios were more than a technological innovation. They fundamentally changed how infantry units operated. Human adaptability and technological reliability worked hand in hand, producing a level of battlefield efficiency that German engineers had never accounted for. The psychological effect was equally significant. American soldiers gained confidence in their ability to maneuver, secure positions, and respond to enemy action. Leaders at all levels could act decisively, knowing that orders would be transmitted and executed without delay. Conversely, German defenders experienced frustration and disbelief. The speed of communication allowed American units to anticipate and counter defensive measures, forcing German engineers and officers to question the viability of their fortifications. Reports from frontline observers emphasized the unprecedented nature of the challenge, a force that could speak as effectively as it could fight. The logistical and operational implications were also profound. Radios had to be distributed efficiently, maintained regularly, and integrated into daily operations. Battery management, repair protocols, and signal discipline became critical. Yet the investment paid dividends immediately. Units operated with greater independence and coordination, and the tactical flexibility afforded by these devices allowed commanders to exploit weaknesses in German defenses with precision. By the time of the Normandy landings, the combination of rigorous training, technological innovation, and effective integration of squad-level radios had created a formidable advantage. Units could move as cohesive entities, supported by artillery and armored units, while German defenders faced a battlefield they could no longer fully control. Every engagement underscored the transformative power of communication, demonstrating that even heavily fortified positions could be neutralized when information flowed faster than bullets. This foundation set the stage for the multiple perspectives that define the story: the human experience, tactical brilliance, technological achievement, leadership decisions, enemy astonishment, and moral complexities that arose from this unprecedented innovation. The first angle is human. For the American infantrymen, the arrival of squad-level radios transformed the battlefield from chaotic and fragmented to coordinated and purposeful. Soldiers could communicate instantly with their leaders, call for fire support, and report enemy positions without leaving cover. This immediacy reduced confusion, allowed for faster decision-making, and instilled confidence. The morale boost was significant. Troops knew that reinforcements could arrive quickly, that orders were received and understood, and that their actions were connected to the broader operation. The radios did not eliminate danger, but they offered a measure of control in the chaos of combat, giving soldiers a psychological edge that the Germans could not anticipate. The second angle is leadership. Officers and non-commissioned leaders could issue commands directly to squads and receive real-time feedback. This instant flow of information enabled tactical adjustments that were previously impossible. For example, if a unit encountered unexpected resistance, leaders could redirect forces, coordinate flanking maneuvers, or call artillery strikes with precision. The radios effectively extended the reach of command to the front line, creating a dynamic where decisions could be implemented almost immediately, rather than relying on slow, vulnerable chains of communication. Leadership became more responsive, more precise, and more empowered by information than ever before. The third angle is tactical. Squad-level radios allowed for unprecedented coordination in offensive and defensive operations. Units could maneuver in synchronization, coordinate overlapping fields of fire, and execute complex assaults with reduced risk of friendly fire. Reconnaissance reports reached decision-makers in seconds, allowing forces to exploit weaknesses in German lines. Ambushes could be avoided, counterattacks organized, and objectives adjusted in real time. The radios effectively shrank the battlefield. What had previously required separate planning and coordination now unfolded seamlessly, unit by unit, squad by squad. The fourth angle is technological. The radios themselves, models like the SCR-300 and SCR-536, were marvels of engineering. Lightweight, durable, and capable of reliable transmission across hundreds of meters, they were designed to withstand the harshest conditions. Mud, rain, and shock from explosions were constant tests, yet the radios functioned as intended. Batteries provided hours of continuous operation, and clarity of communication minimized the risk of misinterpretation. From an engineering standpoint, the deployment represented a remarkable integration of portability, reliability, and combat readiness, translating innovation directly into battlefield advantage. The fifth angle is the enemy perspective. German engineers and officers had long relied on the slow, predictable nature of communication to design defensive fortifications. They assumed that orders would take time to reach the front, creating exploitable gaps in coordination. When they observed American squads communicating instantly, German strategists were stunned. Positions once considered secure were now vulnerable to coordinated assaults. Reports emphasized disbelief and frustration. Engineers realized that their assumptions about communication delays, which had shaped years of defensive planning, no longer held true. The radios challenged doctrine, forcing rapid reconsideration of tactics in the midst of battle. Each of these perspectives highlights a different dimension of the transformation. Human experience, leadership decisions, tactical flexibility, technological achievement, and enemy reaction all converged on the same battlefield, creating a layered and multidimensional effect. The radios were not simply tools, they were instruments of change that affected perception, planning, execution, and morale. They redefined what squads could achieve and reshaped the expectations of both sides. By examining these angles, it becomes clear that portable radios were more than a convenience. They were a disruptive force in combat, challenging entrenched assumptions, accelerating decision-making, and enabling actions that were previously impossible. This foundation prepares the narrative for the next set of perspectives, where further angles such as moral, logistical, and strategic implications will be explored in depth. The sixth angle is moral. Instant communication at the squad level forced soldiers and commanders to make decisions more quickly, often under life-and-death conditions. Choices about whether to advance, retreat, or call for supporting fire carried immediate consequences. The radios amplified responsibility. A misjudgment could cost lives, while timely action could save them. Soldiers faced the ethical weight of rapid decision-making, where hesitation or delay could not be excused. For the Germans, the sudden efficiency of American units introduced a new moral dilemma: how to defend effectively when the attacker's coordination neutralized traditional advantages. Yet civilian casualties and destruction remained a concern in populated areas. The seventh angle is logistical. Deploying radios to every squad required careful planning. Engineers had to ensure supply lines provided enough batteries and spare parts, and units needed protocols for maintenance and repair in the field. Training emphasized not only operation but also conservation and troubleshooting, as a malfunctioning radio could compromise entire operations. Logistics extended beyond the device itself. It included ensuring that leaders could interpret signals correctly, that encryption and frequency discipline were maintained, and that units could rely on backup systems. These considerations were crucial in sustaining the radio's effectiveness during prolonged engagements. The eighth angle is strategic. The introduction of squad-level radios had implications far beyond individual battles. By enabling rapid, coordinated action, the Americans could execute more ambitious operations, exploit weak points in German lines, and respond swiftly to changing battlefield conditions. High-level commanders could influence outcomes without being physically present at the front, effectively extending command reach. German defensive strategies, which had long relied on predictable lines and communication delays, were undermined. The radios created a dynamic where speed, adaptability, and intelligence became decisive factors, reshaping operational planning across entire campaigns. The ninth angle is innovation's ripple effect. Observing the impact of portable radios forced German engineers to reconsider future designs, both for communications and for fortifications. They recognized that defensive architecture alone could no longer guarantee success. Subsequent German developments in portable communications, field telephony, and countermeasures reflected a direct response to the American innovation. The effect extended beyond technology. It influenced doctrine, training, and the philosophy of command, as rapid communication became recognized as a force multiplier. Finally, the 10th angle is psychological. The presence of portable radios changed the way soldiers perceived the battlefield. American troops felt a heightened sense of control, cohesion, and resilience, knowing that each squad was linked to others in real time. Conversely, German soldiers confronted a sense of unpredictability and disorientation. Positions that were once secure were suddenly vulnerable, and the apparent omnipresence of coordination created anxiety and pressure. These psychological shifts affected morale, decision-making, and the overall tempo of engagements, influencing outcomes in ways as significant as firepower or terrain. Combined, these angles paint a comprehensive picture of the revolutionary impact of squad-level radios. From the human experience to leadership, from tactical innovation to enemy reaction, from logistics to psychological effects, the introduction of portable communication transformed combat at multiple levels. The Americans gained cohesion, adaptability, and operational flexibility, while the Germans were forced to contend with an unprecedented disruption of assumptions and strategy. With these perspectives in mind, the narrative moves toward the climax, where the radio's transformative effect is revealed in real combat, demonstrating their decisive impact and shocking German engineers with the scale and efficiency of American operations. The radio's impact became undeniable during the push through the bocage of Normandy. American squads moved through narrow lanes and dense hedgerows with coordination that stunned German observers. Machine gun nests that had once dominated these fields were neutralized not by overwhelming force alone, but by the precise timing enabled by instant communication. Squads could call for artillery or mortar strikes just moments before engaging the enemy, suppressing fire and creating openings that had previously seemed impossible. Leaders issued commands and received immediate feedback. Infantry advancing on one flank could signal adjacent units, who adjusted positions in response to threats, while artillery observers directed supporting fire to neutralize enemy strongpoints. For the Germans, the synchronized assault appeared almost preternatural. Engineers sent reports to higher command describing squads operating as cohesive, responsive entities, coordinated in a manner that rendered static defenses inadequate. Positions that had been fortified to repel massed attacks were systematically dismantled by precision, timing, and coordination, all made possible by the radios. The human toll was evident, yet the radios mitigated chaos. Soldiers who would have been isolated could now signal for assistance or report danger, reducing unnecessary casualties and maintaining momentum. Leadership was amplified. Officers could direct complex maneuvers without exposing themselves to fire, while squads remained flexible and adaptive. German defenders, trained to exploit delays in communication, found themselves reacting to situations that changed in real time. Every ridge, farm, and village captured demonstrated the operational advantage of rapid information flow. Technological innovation met battlefield exigency. The radios survived mud, rain, and shrapnel, delivering clear signals in conditions that would have disabled conventional field telephones. Engineers had tested them extensively, but their real proof came under fire, where every transmission could mean the difference between life and death. The equipment enabled integrated tactics. Flamethrowers, demolition teams, and infantry could coordinate simultaneously, coordinating attacks on fortified positions with unprecedented efficiency. German engineers attempted adjustments, reinforcing key positions and anticipating communications interference. Yet the Americans adapted faster. Portable radios allowed squads to relay enemy positions, call for counterfire, and coordinate movements in seconds. Traditional German defensive doctrine, which assumed delays in communication, was repeatedly undermined. Every attack on a fortified location revealed the radio's advantage. Positions designed to delay the enemy were bypassed or neutralized before the defenders could react. Amid the smoke and rubble, soldiers felt the radio's power. Infantrymen reported their positions, requested fire support, and guided artillery with confidence. Commanders directed multiple squads simultaneously, integrating the efforts of infantry, armor, and engineers. Momentum was sustained across the battlefield, with continuous coordination, ensuring that gains were exploited immediately. For the first time, the Germans were confronted with a force that operated as a single, synchronized organism, rather than a collection of isolated units. By the end of the first day's engagement, it was clear that the radios had altered the course of combat. German engineers documented the phenomenon with a mixture of disbelief and professional respect. Observers noted that units maintained cohesion under conditions that would normally have fragmented operations. Small squads, linked by a web of communication, could achieve tactical effects that exceeded the sum of their firepower. Positions once considered defensible were now vulnerable, and the operational tempo had shifted irreversibly in favor of the Americans. The breakthrough achieved through these coordinated assaults highlighted the radio's transformative power. It was not brute force alone that dominated the battlefield, but the ability to transmit, process, and act upon information in real time. The Germans were forced to adapt on the fly, improvising under conditions that undermined their doctrine. The American advantage in communication reshaped engagements, creating a decisive edge that would influence every subsequent operation. The following days intensified the demonstration of squad-level radio's power. American units moved through villages, orchards, and heavily mined lanes with a precision that had previously been unimaginable. Each squad acted with autonomy while remaining part of a larger, coordinated advance. Radio transmissions relayed enemy movements, directed mortar fire, and synchronized attacks across multiple fronts. German engineers watched from observation posts, astonished at how small units could orchestrate maneuvers that once required entire battalions to attempt simultaneously. During one engagement near a heavily defended crossroads, a single squad encountered an unexpected concentration of enemy machine guns. Instead of pausing or retreating, the squad immediately reported the position over the radio. Artillery was called in, neighboring units flanked the position, and reinforcements arrived in perfect synchrony. Within minutes, the crossroad was secured. The speed and cohesion were impossible under conventional communication methods, and German engineers recorded their shock at the tactical ingenuity enabled by radios. Positions once considered impregnable fell to squads communicating in real time, undermining long-held defensive assumptions. The radios also amplified leadership effectiveness. Junior officers could make informed decisions without waiting for instructions from higher command, coordinating multi-squad movements with accuracy. Even amidst smoke, confusion, and incoming fire, orders were executed efficiently. German commanders realized that their pre-planned defenses relied on delayed American responses, a delay that no longer existed. Instant communication allowed Americans to exploit weak points, react to ambushes, and concentrate fire where needed, turning every engagement into a test of adaptability and coordination. Human resilience intertwined with technological advantage. Soldiers who would otherwise have been isolated felt connected to the larger force, able to request support or report developments instantly. Confidence grew, and hesitation diminished. German defenders, conversely, experienced frustration and demoralization. Every fortification neutralized by coordinated squads challenged both their strategy and expectations. Reports from engineers emphasized repeated disbelief. Entire defensive lines were disrupted not by sheer numbers, but by superior communication and synchronization. The cumulative effect of radios became undeniable. By the third day of operations, American units were advancing faster and with greater cohesion than the Germans had anticipated. Tactical successes were multiplied, as radios allowed precise timing of infantry, artillery, and armor. Defensive positions crumbled when attackers coordinated strikes across multiple vectors in real time. Observers noted that the Americans seemed to operate with almost prescient awareness of the battlefield, a perception fueled entirely by information flow through squad-level radios. German engineers scrambled to adjust. They attempted to disrupt transmissions, reinforce key positions, and develop countermeasures. But the flexibility and redundancy of the American system maintained its advantage. Even under artillery bombardment and intense combat, radios continued to function, enabling squads to adapt instantly to changing circumstances. The technological and human integration reached its apex. Information became as decisive as firepower, and communication emerged as a force multiplier in its own right. By the conclusion of this phase, the Germans had no choice but to recognize the magnitude of the innovation. Positions that would have held for days fell in hours. Attacks that might have been delayed or mismanaged succeeded with remarkable efficiency. German reports documented astonishment at the Americans' ability to coordinate under fire, describing it as an unprecedented disruption of conventional warfare. The squad-level radios had not merely enhanced combat, they had redefined the operational landscape. This decisive period illustrated that modern warfare was no longer determined solely by numbers, terrain, or fortifications. Command, coordination, and communication had become equally, if not more, decisive. The Americans' ability to link every squad into a cohesive, adaptable force reshaped the battlefield, leaving German engineers and commanders grappling with the consequences of an innovation that would influence doctrine for the remainder of the war. The deployment of squad-level radios left a profound mark on the battlefield. The immediate tactical consequences were clear. Positions that had once been considered secure became vulnerable, and American units operated with a cohesion that German forces had not anticipated. Casualties were still heavy, but the radios mitigated disarray and allowed units to fight as coordinated entities. Infantry, artillery, and supporting arms moved in unison, executing maneuvers that had previously been slow, disjointed, or impossible under conventional communication methods. German engineers were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Defensive designs that relied on communication delays, fragmented coordination, and predictable enemy movements were no longer sufficient. Reports from the front detailed astonishment at American squads seemingly operating with near-prescient awareness of the battlefield. Positions reinforced for weeks were neutralized in hours. Ambushes were anticipated, and counterattacks executed before German forces could respond. The traditional reliance on terrain and fortification as a force multiplier had been partially nullified by instantaneous communication. For the Americans, the success of squad-level radios validated months of research, testing, and rigorous training. The SCR-300 and SCR-536 radios had proven resilient under fire, and soldiers' proficiency with them turned technology into a tactical advantage. Leaders could issue commands, adjust strategies, and request support without the delays that had hindered operations in previous campaigns. Human adaptability and technological reliability worked in tandem, transforming the pace, efficiency, and effectiveness of combat. Psychologically, the radios shifted perceptions on both sides. American soldiers gained confidence and cohesion, knowing that even in isolated or dangerous positions, they were linked to the larger force. German troops, meanwhile, experienced frustration and unease. Defensive lines that had seemed formidable now appeared fragile, and the sudden responsiveness of American squads undermined both morale and conventional planning. Observers described repeated disbelief. The Germans had anticipated slow, fragmented attacks, yet encountered units capable of coordinating fire, movement, and support in real time. Strategically, the radio's effect extended beyond individual engagements. By enabling faster, more precise action, they allowed American commanders to exploit weak points in enemy lines, reinforce threatened sectors, and sustain momentum across multiple fronts. The flow of information became a decisive factor, supplementing firepower and maneuver with coordination that could not be easily countered. The psychological, tactical, and operational advantages combined to accelerate the pace of operations and reshape the battlefield's dynamics. Logistically, the system also revealed its strengths. Squads were able to maintain contact without relying on vulnerable runners or exposed telephone lines. Batteries and spare parts were managed efficiently, and units learned to operate the radios under extreme conditions. The reliability of communication allowed planning to remain flexible and responsive, and mistakes or delays that once cost lives were significantly reduced. The integration of radios into daily operations had become essential, and their effectiveness underscored the value of investing in technological innovation alongside training and doctrine. By the close of the initial operations, the radios had demonstrated their transformative power. The Germans' astonishment was not merely anecdotal. Engineering and operational reports documented repeated instances where communication had altered outcomes, neutralized defenses, and amplified the effectiveness of American forces. The battlefield itself had been reshaped. Terrain and fortifications were no longer absolute determinants, and the ability to transmit and act on information had emerged as a decisive factor. The immediate aftermath highlighted both success and cost. Gains in territory and coordination were tempered by casualties and the challenges of sustaining operations. Yet the introduction of squad-level radios had proven revolutionary, changing the fundamental nature of combat. What had once been a slow, fragmented struggle had become a dynamic, coordinated effort that German engineers had neither anticipated nor fully understood. The long-term effects of squad-level radios extended beyond individual battles, reshaping operational doctrine and strategic thinking. American forces gained the ability to coordinate movements with precision across larger areas, reducing the unpredictability that had long characterized infantry assaults. German commanders, meanwhile, faced the sobering reality that their preconceptions about defensive advantage were obsolete. What had been considered secure positions were now vulnerable to rapid, coordinated attacks. Engineers documented their astonishment, acknowledging that communication at the squad level had become as critical as firepower or terrain. Casualty figures reflected the intensity of engagements, yet the radios allowed for a degree of control that mitigated chaos. American squads were able to maintain momentum, call for support, and navigate hazardous terrain with fewer losses than might otherwise have occurred. German units, unprepared for this level of coordination, suffered disproportionate losses in certain sectors. Observers recorded that entire defensive positions collapsed, not because of superior numbers, but due to the speed and accuracy of American communication and coordination. The technological triumph was clear. Radios survived extreme conditions, transmitting clearly even under artillery fire and dense foliage. Engineers had tested them extensively, but the battlefield validated every design choice. Battery life, durability, and portability proved sufficient for sustained combat, and soldiers' mastery of the devices turned them into extensions of tactical thinking. The radios were not merely tools, they were force multipliers, transforming every squad into a node of command and observation, capable of responding to rapidly evolving threats. Psychologically, the impact was profound on both sides. American soldiers reported increased confidence, cohesion, and situational awareness. The radios allowed them to operate effectively in isolated positions, coordinate maneuvers, and respond instantly to danger. German troops experienced a contrasting effect. Uncertainty, disorientation, and frustration permeated defensive efforts. Positions that had once been considered nearly impregnable fell quickly, and commanders had to improvise under pressure, constantly reacting to the Americans' speed and adaptability. Strategically, the introduction of squad-level radios influenced subsequent campaigns. Allied forces adopted similar systems in other theaters, recognizing the decisive advantage that instant, portable communication provided. German forces attempted countermeasures, including signal jamming and modified tactics, but the fundamental shift in operational capability could not be undone. Commanders learned that information flow could be as decisive as tanks, artillery, or fortifications, and that doctrine needed to adapt to incorporate this reality. The psychological, tactical, and technological implications converged to create a lasting legacy. American units could execute complex maneuvers, integrate supporting arms, and maintain cohesion under conditions that would have previously led to fragmentation. German engineers and commanders were forced to rethink defensive strategy and doctrine, acknowledging that the battlefield itself had changed. Reports from both sides emphasized the unprecedented nature of the innovation. A single technological advancement, when combined with training and leadership, had altered the fundamental calculus of combat. By the end of these operations, the consequences were undeniable. The radios had shifted the balance in favor of the Americans, reduced chaos in the field, and enhanced the effectiveness of individual squads. The lessons learned would influence military doctrine for the remainder of the war and inform post-war developments in communications, small unit tactics, and operational planning. The battlefield had been irrevocably transformed, proving that human ingenuity, when paired with technological innovation, could redefine the possibilities of warfare. The story of squad-level radios in World War II demonstrates how a single technological innovation can ripple across every facet of combat. What began as a tool designed to enhance coordination became a decisive factor, altering tactics, morale, and strategy alike. For American squads, radios provided more than a means of communication. They offered control amidst chaos, confidence under fire, and the ability to act decisively. Leaders could direct multiple units simultaneously. Infantry could maneuver with cohesion, and artillery could strike with precision, transforming small teams into integrated, adaptive forces. From the German perspective, the radios shattered long-held assumptions. Engineers and commanders had designed defenses around the predictable limitations of conventional communication. When every squad could operate with instantaneous coordination, those defenses faltered. Positions once deemed secure became vulnerable, and operational planning required urgent revision. The astonishment and adaptation of German forces underscore a broader truth. Technological innovation in warfare does not exist in isolation. It reshapes doctrine, challenges assumptions, and forces both sides to confront new realities. The human dimension remains equally striking. Soldiers, navigating deadly terrain, relied on the invisible threads of communication to survive, adapt, and succeed. The radios amplified human ingenuity, discipline, and courage, proving that technology alone was insufficient without skilled and adaptive operators. Morale, perception, and cohesion became intertwined with innovation, creating an advantage that extended far beyond machinery or firepower. Strategically, the legacy of squad-level radios endured. They influenced subsequent Allied campaigns, informed post-war doctrine, and foreshadowed the centrality of communication in modern combat. The Normandy battles illustrated that the ability to process, transmit, and act upon information could rival traditional metrics of strength, such as numbers, firepower, or terrain control. Ultimately, the story is a testament to human adaptability and innovation. The Americans' radios reshaped not just the battlefield of Normandy, but the very nature of warfare. demonstrating that even entrenched assumptions can be overturned when technology, training, and human determination converge. The legacy endures. A small device in the hands of a soldier became a force multiplier, a disruptor of doctrine, and a symbol of the transformative power of communication in war.